Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? It's me, Liam, here to deliver you today a new and improved ABC multi-GPU mining tutorial, the easy way. So what will this tutorial let you do? It'll let you do three key things. Mine ABCmint using multiple graphics cards on one single system. Administrate your rig with ease. No more plugging in a mouse, keyboard, or monitor to your rigs. And securely remotely administrate your rig from anywhere on Earth. So we'll be going over all of that. And this guide assumes that you're using Ubuntu as your personal computer, the computer that you're going to be using to access your rig remotely. It certainly helps if you have Ubuntu because you'll be able to follow along easily with my steps, but you could very feasibly do this with Macintosh computers or with Windows. So going forward. So just to give you a quick overview of the hardware that I am using, I have 4 NVIDIA 1080 Ti's hooked up to my rig currently, along with an Intel Pentium G4560. What's important to note about this CPU is that it has 2 cores and 4 threads. What I've noticed is that when I am mining ABC, each card has to utilize one whole thread worth of resources in order to continue its mining operation. So it seems like a potential bottleneck when you are building your mining computer is the core count, which is the thread count in essence. 2-to-1 ratio. So there's that you should keep that in mind if you're building, say, 6 or 8, 10 cards, whatever. You're going to need the CPU to back those that computational overhead. So in addition to that, I have a 120 gigabyte solid state drive. The blockchain is not very big right now, so you'd be fine with a small storage medium like that. And then I have 16 gigabytes of RAM, but that is overkill. You could get away with 4 easily. And then you just need a USB drive with Ubuntu Server 1804 on it. That is something I'm not going to go over, but you can find tutorials to easily write live images to USB sticks. As far as software goes, we're going to be leveraging a few things. We're going to be using OpenSSH, Tight VNC Server, and then at the end of the tutorial, ngrok. That'll let us remotely administrate. We're going to be using XFC as our desktop environment, and then we're going to be using the abc-mint.com second foundation mining software to actually do the mining, which requires CUDA. We'll get into that. So the first thing you're going to do is install Ubuntu Server on your machine. And I made a small video detailing that right here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is boot off of the USB stick with Ubuntu 1804 on it. It'll vary from BIOS to BIOS, aka your motherboard, how exactly you do this, but it's typically the same process on most of these. You get into the boot menu of some kind, and then you select your USB stick. And then you just install Ubuntu. Okay, and now proceed through the menu as you normally would. If it asks you to update the installer, go ahead and do that. Click through here. You want to make sure that the installer uses the whole disk, which it looks like it is doing. This is a 120 gigabyte solid state drive, and it's using 111 gigs. So let's just see how it sets up the partitioning. Okay, our root directory has 111 gigs. That'll be plenty. And now we hit continue. So I'm going to make the username ABCminer. The password can be whatever you want. However, it does not need to be a very complicated password. We're not going to use the password to authenticate. So you can make this any easy to remember password. And then you want to click install OpenSSH server.
Hit done. You can skip all this stuff and then just wait for the installer to complete. If you don't know the IP of your mining rig when it connects to your local area network, you can simply sign on to the rig itself and you get the IP right there. 86.18 appears to be our IP.
Okay, so you've installed Ubuntu Server successfully on your computer. You've enabled OpenSSH. Your computer's rebooted and now it is on your local area network. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to SSH into the machine to verify that SSH works. So all you need to know are the username you created and then the IP address of the mining rig itself. So in my case, that happens to be ABC miner at 192.168.86.18. There we go, we're in the system. And as per the instructions, just run a sudo apt update and upgrade. All right, so we've successfully updated our system. Moving on to step 2. We're going to do some quick security stuff. This stuff is really simple and it makes your system way more secure. It's definitely worth doing. So we're going to generate RSA key pairs to authenticate into the mining rig instead of using password authentication. It's a whole lot better. So the first thing I'm going to do is generate a key pair. So you can do this in any directory you want. I'm just going to organize it a little bit. And then I'm just going to call it ABC Miner 1. Let's do that. Don't need a passphrase. Okay, so I got ABC Miner 1 and ABC Miner 1.pub. So that's what I wanted. So now we're going to use this handy little utility called SSH Copy ID. And that lets us copy the public key, well, the key pair, I should say. It lets you copy the key pair to a remote system as long as you authenticate via password. So it's a pretty useful little utility. So SSH Copy ID -I. So we want to copy ABC Miner 1. And then just ABC Miner at. So this is the command that I'm going to be using. My username, my IP. Okay. There we go. So it gave us a success message. So now what we want to do is disable password authentication on this machine and then restart SSH. So I already have SSH to my mining rig opened on the right panel. So I'm going to just scroll down here. I know I should be using the search function, but amateur hour. Okay. Password authentication, no. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so we restarted SSH. So now let's exit the system really quick. So the command I used initially to get in here, this command, SSH ABC miner 192.168.86.18, this should no longer work. Yep, denied. That's what we want. So now, when we SSH, we're going to specify the link to, or the, we're going to specify the public key that we generated earlier. So RSA. There we go. Okay, so now we authenticate via public-private key pairs. All right, and now we just quickly enable uncomplicated firewall, aka UFW. So we're just going to allow SSH only. We don't need any other ports open. So rules updated, and then I'm gonna reload the firewall. Oops, we gotta enable the firewall first. It's gonna ask you if you want to do this. You say yes. Okay, so it's allowing connections to open SSH, and by default, it should be denying connections to any other arbitrary port. So there we go. We've now effectively made authentication a way more daunting task and prevented anyone from communicating with our rig on any other port. Okay, so you need a few prerequisite software packages to make this entire setup work. So first we're going to install the desktop environment, which is XFCE4 and XFCE4 goodies. So it's kind of a big package. I'll skip ahead most likely because this will take a bit. Okay, so the XFCE installation finished. Now we just need tight VNC server. Okay. And then we will start the VNC server just to make sure it works. And it says you will require a password to access your desktops. This password can be weak and crappy. It doesn't really matter. You don't need a view-only password. Do that. And then you'll see new X desktop is ABC1. That's what you want. But we're going to kill it. So we're going to run VNC server -kill1. And now we're going to edit some config files. So first you're going to want to back up your X startup configuration right now. So just run that command and then okay. And then we want to edit the X startup file and change the first 3 lines. Okay, so pretty much the only change here is we're going to tell it to use XFCE4, copy that. And then you're going to drop in this line. There we go. And then we'll mark it as executable. I don't know how necessary this step is, but couldn't hurt just in case. Okay, and then we'll start VNC server. Sweet, so it started successfully. All right, so you're gonna want to put that. You're gonna want to just hold on to that little tidbit for a second. We're gonna connect to VNC in step 4, I believe. We're not gonna connect to it immediately. We don't need it just yet. What we do need right now is CUDA, and CUDA takes a while to install, but all you really have to do is copy and paste these lines. All right, so the CUDA install finished successfully, and then I rebooted my computer. So now let's SSH back into it. Sometimes this takes a second. There we go. All right, so we got that. So now we're gonna move the ABCmint second foundation software onto the mining rig. So the first thing you're gonna do is go to the website and download the actual tar.gz, which contains the executables in the program. So we're gonna copy that over to the mining rig. So we're gonna do. So this is pretty much the syntax. You just specify where your key is, you specify the file you're moving, and then the user. And then we're going to say, we're going to move into the temporary directory. And then you'll see something like this, which tells you that it's moving. Bear with me. I'm in the garage of my house right now, so it's a little slow to transfer over to my computer. Okay, so that's there. So now on the rig itself, we're going to copy this to the home directory. Now we see it's right there. Cool. So now we can tar xvf this. Sweet. Now we got our ABCmint second foundation folder. Then we have an install.sh, so let's just see if that runs. There we go. Okay, that's it. So we've successfully run that. It looks like you don't need a chmod plus x, the install.sh, but if you experience problems, then that's probably the solution to it. Okay, so now we're going to SSH back into our rig with another parameter added to our SSH connection command. So we're going to and then we're going to use -L. So -L will say, hey, take this arbitrary port on this machine and forward it to the local, and send the data from the local port to the remote port. And in essence, that's what this 5901 localhost 5901 argument does. So I'll show you why we're doing that in just a second. All right, so you should just get the terminal for the remote machine. And so now we're going to run VNC server. Okay, so we started it. The new X desktop is ABC1. And so one important thing to note is that so what this command does is it initializes the desktop environment through VNC. And we basically just use a VNC viewer on our computer to look at this. So I'm going to delete this really quick so I can show you what it looks like to actually set this up. All you really do is go to new connection, and then the VNC server, it'll prompt you for that. You just type in localhost 5901. That's really it. And then you can say ABCmint1. And then hit OK. So it'll prompt you for the password that you made when you set up VNC. So enter that. And then you can just hit use default config. And conveniently enough, the ABCmint second foundation software is right there. So if we click this, we can boot this guy up and show you how this works. So the way this program works is for every graphics card you have, it seems to create a new instance of the ABCmint client. And so what that means is that if you have 4 graphics cards like I do, you're going to be running 4 separate instances of ABC, and that is going to, and each client's going to have its own kind of like mining process, so to say. So the first thing you need to do is start ABC core for all of these panels. So each panel represents one graphics card, so to say. And we can see here that we see the temperature for each card and the current fan, or the utilization, I guess, and then the wattage it's pulling. So when you first start this up, it's tempting to hit start mining because look, it's running. But we can see here that the total block, it's only at 1%, 0%. So you have to wait for this to completely sync. It'll only do this the first time you start the program. The first time you start it, it'll probably take 10 to 20 minutes for the blockchain to sync. On subsequent boots, it'll take about 2 minutes to start ABCmint, but then it'll work without having to do all this synchronization. All right, so all 4 separate ABCmint instances have successfully synced, and now we're going to start mining. So all we literally do is just click Start Mining for each one of these panels, and the miner will start. Now we can verify that the miner is indeed running by just running NVIDIA SMI. And then we can see here that we have 4 separate processes, each one on a different GPU, and seems like the power utilization matches what would be expected for a mining operation. Okay, so now the last thing here is we can set up remote administration that'll let us access the rig from anywhere. So the way you do that is actually really simple. First, you're going to go to ngrok.com, make an account, register, blah, 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 blah. And once you've done that, you're going to download the ngrok client. So here I'm going to copy the link, and then I'm just going to do wget-p. I believe that's the syntax. Oops. Okay. So destination first. wget-p, home directory, boom. Okay, so we got ngrok on here. So now we'll just do unzip ngrok stable Linux. Okay. And now we have the ngrok executable right there, the green one. So now, first we have to register ngrok with your given account. So you're going to copy and paste your auth token right here. Mine is going to be different than yours. So there we go. So now we have ngrok on the system, and we have our authentication token specific to our account registered. So now the last step is all we do is go back to your VNC viewer, open up a new terminal, and then type this in, ngrok tcp22. So now here we can see that we connected to 0tcp ngrok.io on port 11671. So let me log out of this instance of, let me log out of this SSH instance. And so now we're going to pull out this SSH command again. Now instead of 192.168.86.18, which is, you know, a local area network address, we're going to type in 0.tcp.ngrok.io. And then our port was 11671. So then -p 11671. It's going to warn us that it's not familiar with this computer. And boom, there we go. So in essence, I can run this command from anywhere. A hotspot on my phone, a coffee shop, and I will always connect back to my rig. And then because we have the port forwarding enabled for 5901, which is what VNC is running on, we can also pull up the desktop just like that. And granted, the latency and the quality of the desktop connection will be a little lower when you're not on your local area network, but for administration, it really doesn't make a difference. So there you have it. You now have a mining rig set up that you're able to remotely administrate anywhere in the world, and is hopefully pretty straightforward. On the last slide of this presentation, I just put a quick little reference that shows you what command to use where you're connecting. And to clarify, I actually did connect through ngrok to the mining rig on my local area network. You can do that. You don't need to, but you can. But for instance, this command right here, username at IP, if I specified my local area network IP off the local area network, it wouldn't work. So that's really where ngrok shines and helps us remotely administrate. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this content, please feel free to like, subscribe, whatever you got to do. I'm going to leave a link to all of the content that I covered in the description, so check that out, and hope to see you guys soon. Thank you for watching.